Well, hey folks, I'm Josh. Welcome back to the shop. Today, we're going to be making a new crosscut sled. I want to build one that has stop blocks, and I want the stop blocks to be able to be put on without using a router or T-tracks or anything like that. Most of it is being made out of melamine. The back support is just going to be 2 strips of melamine that I'm going to glue together and put some screws in. And then at the front, I have another 2 pieces of melamine cut from this. And then these are just some strips that are going to go in the miter slots.
So the first thing to do is to sand, glue, and screw the back fence together. I just countersink the screws and drill the holes, marking center so that I don't put a screw through the center, which would be bad. That's where the blade is. And now I'm cutting the groove that will be between the 2 layers of the front fence. You need to cut the groove for a slot so that there can be a block that'll slide through there that'll act as the back of the stop block. Now I just got to clear those grooves out a little bit. Marking center on the front fence just so that I know where it's at. And then I'm just going to quickly draw in the bit that I'm going to cut away for a little bit of hand relief, but leaving it tall in the middle. Now I'm drilling out the back blocks that'll go in the slits for the fence so that a 1/4-20 bolt can fit inside them and sit flush inside that little block. Now that the front fence has been glued and screwed together, I can cut the slit where the bolt will slide so that that block will fit inside. Doing a little sanding, just take off some sharp edges, and there's the stop block where I marked center that I can drill the hole for the bolt to go in. And there's the assembled stop block. Squaring off the bottom and then putting a little bit of a chamfer on the bottom so that there's some dust relief. Now there's the stop blocks that I have to mark the height for so that they're at a good height and they sit right. So I just marked them with a knife. Now I got some pennies in the tracks to raise the strips up a little bit for the miter slot, and then I wedged them out with some paper so that they ride on the outside edges. And on the bandsaw, I'm cutting off the relief for the fence, marking the opposite side so that it matches, and cutting the other side. Take the weights off of the sled to see that, yep, the strip's stuck, which is good. Now I'm going to drill and countersink the screws to hold the strips in. Now I'm going to glue and screw the back fence on. Being careful to avoid the center. And now I'm going to put the front fence on. I'm going to use 1 large screw on my right side and then a short screw on the left, so that then I can adjust a little bit by pulling the short screw out and pivoting as I need to get square. I'm cutting the initial slot in the bottom of the sled there, and I was getting a little bit of chip out, so I put some tape on to help avoid that. Here you can see, once I've put that front fence on, that I'm a little bit out of square, so I can remove that screw on the left side, bump the fence back just a little bit, which I'm about to do right here. Put a little clamp on there so I don't move it too much. Give it a little bit of a bump. Check for square again after I put the screw back in. Good enough. Make a little bit higher cut so that I can make a test cut. And here I had to do a couple more adjustments, but ultimately this cut side of that board with the other bottom edge there flush to the fence, I got nice and square. Now I put a little bit of a safety block on the front with some glue so I can protect my fingers. And here's the stop blocks being cut to length. Put the wing nuts on and they sit nice and square. I'm using a router to cut a little groove in the back. Put the stop blocks on the back of the fence for when I'm not using them and they're out of the way, but I still know where they are.
It should be noted that if you wanted to make these cuts for where these stop blocks are sitting on the back side here, obviously this is turned around for this little bit of the video here. If you wanted to make these cuts for these to sit on the back, you wouldn't have to use a router. You could of course do that, you could do it before you attach this fence. You could do it on the table saw. If you have a nice vertical jig, you could cut it on the table saw. You could cut it on the band saw, you could cut it with a hand saw. Lots of different tools you could do that with if you don't have a router, just so you have some options. One thing that I would do different is, I don't think I would use melamine again on the front and the back fences here. When I sandwiched it together, there was a whole bunch of glue squeeze out, because melamine just doesn't take much glue, and it didn't adhere very well. So I would probably use plywood for the front and the back the next time. Just make things a little easier. I think the end result would be just about the same in terms of quality, but it would have made it easier because I had to clean out some glue squeeze out inside the slot, things like that. So plywood would have made things a little simpler for that part, but other than that, everything's really good. Just to show you, slides really good in the slots. The stop blocks work really well. I really like the way that these go. Slide them in, no trouble. You can tighten them down with the wing nut. They stay in place really well. They're nice and square. And I think it's nice to have two in case you're doing a piece that you want to have a cut on each end. That works out great. Thanks for watching. I hope this was useful. Now this is the shorter version of my build of this sled. I have a video that's around the 40-minute mark in terms of length if you'd like to have a much more in-depth look at how I made this, some more of the dimensions, things like that, and just some of the discussion of why certain things are the way they are. If you're newer to woodworking or newer to crosscut sleds, that video might be handy. Otherwise, if you're experienced in woodworking, this video is probably more than enough for you to completely copy this sled, and then, you probably didn't even need this much. So I thought I'd put out both videos just in case they're helpful. Please, if you'd like to see the longer video, check out the link. I'll be sure to include it here. And thanks for watching. Have a good one.